All right. I invite you to go ahead and close your eyes and take a breath in and exhale. Take another breath in and exhale and relax. Take one last inhale in. And as you exhale, release everything to the earth. Release everything, your whole body, any worry, anxiety, tension, everything. The earth can take it. We'll take it and compost it for the rest of the world. And as you sit here with your eyes closed, go ahead and feel your body. Feel into wherever there might need to be a little bit of love, wherever there might be a little bit of tension, a little bit of tightening, and just let it go. It'll be there later if you need it again. And isn't it nice to know that this is all it takes to feel good? So just feel your body, notice any tightness, and then breathe into it and relax. And now, I want you to imagine for a moment that right in front of you is an orb of energy. It's a nice white light orb of energy. It's all bubbling, kind of effervescent, a little bit like champagne bubbles, a little bit like a bubble bath, a little bit like fairy dust. And it's growing in size, and you can feel its heat and its warmth and its light. And I want you to go ahead and step into that white orb of energy and feel all those bubbles around you, feel all that energy around you, and let it absorb into your body like a sponge. Let all the little white bubbles into your body, maybe massaging in between the spaces of all your cells and loosening the body up even more. And this bubble of energy, it's really incredible. It's magical. And it's about to take you to a place that you've always wanted to go. It's like your own little private time travel. And all you have to do is imagine a time that you'd like to visit, people you might like to talk to, anytime, here on Earth, or beyond in the universe, any place you wish to go. This is your own magical time machine. And all of a sudden, you see a little dial appear in front of you, and you notice that you can type it in. So go ahead and notice that as you're thinking where you want to go, that it's all dialed in for you. The machine knows exactly where to take you. And notice for a minute, these bubbles start to jiggle and shake a little bit more. These bubbles are massaging you a little bit more, relaxing you a little bit more. They're energizing, and maybe even turning some colors, some fun colors. It's kind of like your own little hot tub time machine. Feels really fun to be inside the hot tub time machine. And now the bubbles have stopped shaking a little bit. And you notice that they're dissipating all around you. It just disappears around you. And you're standing exactly the place where you imagined. And everybody's so excited to see you. There's a whole waiting crew for you. They've been waiting for you, and they're welcoming you. They're giving you a big, energetic hug, and they're asking you to come with them. Go ahead and take their hand and go on in. And I want you to just allow them to show you around. They have magical gifts to show you. watch as they point and just see what shows up for you. And they also have something for you to try. Perhaps it's something for you to try on, something for you to eat, something for you to drink, something for you to try, something that's a part of their culture. It's kind of like an initiation to welcome you, to say thank you for coming to visit us. And we'd like to share with you our gifts. Go ahead and try what it is that they have to offer you. And you're so grateful. They know how appreciative you are. They can feel your gratitude as you try it. And everybody cheers. Everybody's happy that you're there. And now they say, we have one thing that we really want to share with you, something that's the answer to a question that you've had for a long time. And it's right over here. And all you have to do is step forward. Go ahead and allow yourself to receive whatever information they have for you, whether it's an image, a color, an animal, an idea, or a feeling. It might just be the incredible feeling of love. Because every time we interact, there's enrichment. Every time we interact with new people and new places, we grow, we learn, we expand. And they're so grateful because you've brought yourself and it's enriched their life. And now take a moment and say thank you. And now, notice how this moment is with you always. You can come back here anytime you like. It's just a thought away. All these people you want to talk to, this place you've always wanted to go, they're so grateful you're here. And they're just a thought away whenever you want. And know that in your heart. And say goodbye for now. I'll be back again. And now come on back to your body. And wiggle your nose, wiggle your toes, wiggle your body. And come on back and open your eyes. And I would love to welcome you all to Dreaming Earth, and especially welcome to Zaid Sri Antra. He is the founder of Sacred Structures, and I met Zaid in one of the most magical ways. I was invited to a dinner party and told that I would meet incredible humans. And Zaid came and sat next to me and told me about his projects, and his generosity and his love of the world blew me away. And ever since then, I have just wanted to hang out with him as much as possible and also share his vision and his message with you. So thank you, Zaid, and welcome to Dreaming Earth.
Oh, thank you, Stacy. I have to say that dinner and that evening was magical, and that all your stories blew me away. And it was such an exciting time to hear all the crazy things that you've done. And it's like, you can live that kind of life? That sounds amazing.
Well, that's exactly what I said about your life. This is fun. So tell people about Sacred Structures, because this is an idea that I have always wanted to see happen. And then when I found out that somebody was doing it, it blew me away, because I thought this is the future and somebody's doing it now. So tell people about Sacred Structures.
Well, thank you for that, Stacey. The idea for Sacred Structures was a long time coming. So when I was a kid, being into metaphysics and meditation and all those things, and then going to my personal life and my career and my professional life, those things really didn't go together. I was in a very conservative space. And so all my ideas and concepts and practices and the metaphysical were kind of like something I kept to myself almost. And so in the beginning, Sacred Structures was a very, very crude version of what it is today. But it was my expression. It was my connection to kind of all things and knowing that everything was tied together with a thread. Even if I couldn't really explain it at the time, even if I really didn't know why or how, the passion for it really just kind of came from nowhere for me. And it was something that I always pursued. And so Sacred Structures, for me personally, has been my mission on adding structure to my own life. I'm a very creative, free-flowing, spare of the moment, come up with it in a second kind of person, and realizing that I was the person to bring structure to a lot of people and places and all those things was a very interesting task for me because I wasn't always considered the structured individual. So for me, Sacred Structures really began when I really delved deep into the work of the likes of like Drunvalo Melchizedek and the books on the Flower of Life, Sacred Geometry, understanding how phi ratios work, the Fibonacci spiral. I kind of went down this rabbit hole of understanding how the reality that we all share is structured and interconnected. And it just so happens that when I went to college, I went for electron microscopy. So I was using atomic force microscopes and looking at atoms and molecules and all these amazing things. And I was always trying to figure out how all the pieces kind of fit together. Because in modern science, at the time, we were really delving into quantum physics. We were talking about how, like, the presence of an atom was really, really based on if you were looking at it or not. And if you weren't looking at it, then it wasn't there. And the fact that, like, when you broke every single physical thing down, it just turned to energy and light. And two things have never touched in all of existence. The fact that our cells are pushing onto each other is just magnetism and force. There's actually no physical matter going on there. The fact that you could slam your hand on the table and there's like a 1 in 30 trillion chance that all the atoms would miss and they would fly right through each other because they weren't actually solid. Going through all those lessons and understandings in my academia, I started to really think about how, like, okay, well, if none of this is solid and everyone's saying that this is all quasi-real, yet we're all having this experience and this group hallucination together, then what's the underlying concept here that we can tap into that's really, as funny as it is, what's the solid concrete evidence that we have to work with in this ethereal, like, soup that we're in? And the concept of pyramids and the mathematics behind it and what makes them all work, it really comes from this place in me of just being hungry for information, but also understanding that the life that we're building around us, the society that we live in, all these things are kind of manufactured. They've been put in place over decades, if not centuries, of these types of ways to manipulate and control the field that we're in. It's like saying, if you have all these fish and they're swimming in this small pond, if you can control the pH and the sunlight and the algae and all the components that go into that water, you can control the health of the fish. You can control how they act, their behavior, when they breed, all those things. And to some degree, I believe that we are kind of experience that same thing in the society that we live in, whether it's controls or manipulation through politics or through media or food we eat or what's in the air we breathe. All these things have a base layer of communication that they're all using to kind of integrate themselves into every other part, which is energy. And by energy, what I really mean is there's that subtle energy that we all kind of consider prana or chi or any of the other labels that you can give it. But in the time that I was going to school, they basically just call it dark matter. They said, we don't know what 96% of this is, so we're just going to slap a label on it, which is basically them saying they don't know what it is, but they don't want to tell you that, so they just tell you, oh, we have a name for it. And in doing more and more research down that, finding that this subtle energy has such a massive impact on the way that we live our lives, the way we perceive things, the way that we share emotions, the way that we communicate knowledge through speech and sound. All these components are so interconnected, even though they don't seem it on the surface. The fact that sound and pitch and all these other things are completely and unified with color and all these other concepts that you would think are not connected. The more and more I dug, the more and more I looked into it. It's like I was finding puzzle pieces as I went. And it was only when I really learned how to really embody the information and really feel into the information I was learning, not just conceptually, not just through my perceived ability to like process information. My ability to feel into my emotions and be present with a piece of information is what actually snapped the pieces together and made me realize, oh, these are connected. They don't just seem connected, they are. And in that process, Sacred Structures has come up as my way of interacting not only with the field that we all get to enjoy, but my ability to honor, to clear, to energize a space with the set of skills that I've been able to possess over years, and being able to leave an impact on any space that I go, and being able to really connect with this planet, with the field that we're all in, and being able to really make a change. And for me, it really comes down to, I have seen so many people have varying degrees of impact and reaction and beautiful experiences with these pyramids. And I don't even explain to them what they do. I don't even explain to them what they are. I just let them play with them, and they will eventually figure out or find their own way to interact with them that they can then tap into the field and have their own relationship. And it's a beautiful thing to see, because I tell people all the time, my favorite part of the pyramids is actually now sitting outside of them and watching somebody go through the experience on the inside and getting to see them open the door and peer through the void and experience parts of themselves in the field that a simple structure can provide, done correctly with the right intention, with the right setting. But literally just through structure and math and geometry, we can actually change our relationship to this field. And actually, instead of being controlled by it or being a victim of the circumstances and situations, but then realize that not only are we in control, but we are manifesting everything around us. And with that connection to the field, we can now have a conversation with it instead of trying to impart our will upon it, which is what a lot of people spend a lot of their lives in the spiritual journey trying to rationalize. Well, if I'm having these great thoughts and I'm using these affirmations and I'm doing all these beautiful things, why don't I see the change that I want to see in my life? And yeah, those things are great. They are definitely one way to make sure that you can see and perceive the world in such a way that will help you see things more positively. But without backing it up with the work, with the actual communication, having the hard conversations, willing to go deep, all those things are really where the work really settles in and becomes part of your life. And as Sacred Structures has grown, I have seen more and more ways that these can impact people. And in doing so, it has just inspired me more and more to pursue it and create even more, what I would call beautiful landmarks to leave behind for others to experience.
Incredible. And this is exactly what Dreaming Earth is about this subtle energy field that we're co-creating collectively, that we're constantly daydreaming the future. We may or may not know it, but that's exactly what we're doing. And you're playing in that subtle energetic realm to interact with people in really beautiful ways. So sacred structures, you're creating these pyramids. So you were this scientist material guy, basically, who had all of this interesting. By the way, I've stubbed my toe before, and I have said to myself, there's a 1 in I don't know how many chances that my foot just went through that thing, and then my foot didn't hurt. It's like just by being aware that there's an opportunity that your foot actually went through the material, you don't hurt yourself. It's very fun. Just want to throw that in there. So so with sacred structures, you've been building these material pyramids. You've been 3D printing them. Is that true?
So in the beginning, they were 3D printed as like a proof of concept. And then as they've grown, what I've done is kind of introduce different aspects from other things that I've done. So these are very similar to like how orgonite functions. They're a polymer resin that's organic based, and then it has a bunch of different other materials. I use like 7 different metals. I use certain crystals and stones, sacred geometry, a bunch of other things to kind of get this to generate its own field. And so they started off as being, fiberglass resin. They were very crude, and then they slowly evolved into what you see here. And so these are the capstone, and as you can see, these are the little legs. This is just a little table stand, but they are large meditation pyramids that can be anywhere from 6 feet to 12 feet. And as they are built, I've learned quite a few different ways in really using intention and focus in actual putting things together to create objects that are not only just, okay, here's a really pretty, resin pyramid. It is, here are methods and intentions that are actually directing the energy towards a specific intention or direction that then allows the person who meditates under it to then feel that without me needing to actually whisper in their ear, hey, this is the intention. Hey, this is the focus. Hey, this is what we're trying to put our energy towards. So this is what they look like. But as far as what they've become, they've had several iterations that have been really changed by the work that I've done in sound bowls and energy tuning and pranic healing, a lot of other modalities that I've come across that have really kind of reframed how building objects can be done. Because I've been a product designer since coming out of college, and I've always been wanting to build things and create stuff. But in this, what I would say art now, it is very much a focused intention on how things can be built with a level of focus that before it was introduced to me, I was like, that's a lot of stuff to go into making something. But supporting things in that way, you then learn that not only is the 3D environment and these 3D objects much more than just inanimate things that we interact with, but they also look to be created in this experience. They're using us as a vessel to experience this 3D creation, and they're using us to co-create. And so a lot of times when I do have these concepts and ideas, it doesn't even feel like my idea. It feels like something's tapping me on the shoulder and it's going, hey, I want to exist. I want to be created. I want to be created through you. And so as I go through the process of creation and putting things together and producing these things, once they're finished, it's almost like this relief process of, oh, okay, I get to exist here now. Great. Thanks for doing your part. Now I'm going to go do my thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, go do your thing now. And so that has been a beautiful reflection on, we think that in this physical reality, just carving a tool or making an object and then you're done, it really goes a lot deeper. And in that pursuit of what that something deeper really means, I've had beautiful reflections of people who have completely different backgrounds, completely different perspectives and the way they view things, but they have taught me so much in that this physical reality and how we co-create things can be much deeper and much more authentic than I ever gave it credit for.
Yeah. I've had that experience with plants where in gardens, it's so clear that these plants are talking to me. They're like, create this habitat for us to thrive, create this habitat for this infinite wisdom to come through, to feed people, to nourish people, you can feel that energy coming through. And the other day I was looking at a piece of, those thin dried seaweed papers?
Yeah.
That you eat. And I put it up to the sun, and it was incredible, the infinite amount of wisdom that was in this dried seaweed, you could just see it crystallized with light. And when you tap into the energy of material, there's so much information in the water. There's so much information in the air that comes through. This is one of my favorite things to talk about as an architect. So thank you so much for this.
Right.
I'm curious. I'm curious where you see, let's say 50 years from now, Sacred Structures has inspired people to build with this kind of intention and this kind of focus and this kind of materiality. And so where is Sacred Structures, let's say 50 years from now, 100 years from now, however far you want to take us in the future?
Well, I'm very pragmatic in my approaches. So even with this business, like when I started it, I was like, okay, we have 3 phases, and each phase is going to help build the next one. And then that's going to create momentum and do all these amazing things. And so it's very interesting that you say that, because when I first started doing this, and I just started to take it on as something that I would do as a business, as something that just, oh, this is a cool passion project, we're just going to do it as a hobby. Once I really understood where my place was in all of that, and where my role was to be played, and I took it on, I said, okay, this is something I'm willing to commit to do. And I realized I'm committing to do this for the rest of my life. This isn't a phase. This isn't something that, oh, this will be fun for a little while. This is something that really makes up who I am and what I plan to do here while I'm on this planet. The process really comes down to this. I was someone who was very hard to get to meditate. It would take me an hour, and I'd maybe get 5 good minutes. And if I was lucky to get 5 good minutes, then that was a great day of meditation. And because my brain was so analytical, and it was hard to stop thinking about the world's problems and how to fix them all, it was something where I kind of struggled to always kind of reach that no thought state, or get to that place where I was really being able to take information that was coming from my higher self. And so in practicing and playing with these pyramids, I realized, oh, this is something that's great for people like me that are super analytical, that are hard to make a container where they can really go deep and do that work. And so in the beginning, these became just a simple meditation pyramid that somebody could sit under, do their meditations, their daily practices, their affirmations, and get to that place very quickly. So maybe in 20 minutes, they could have like 10 good minutes of meditation and really focus down that thing. Because for me, it was all about efficiency, right? Okay, if I can get a great meditation in 20 minutes, then I'm doing something right. But it grew from that almost immediately into, now imagine this as a different way of life. Imagine a reality where large pyramid structures are seen as just very normal art installations in front of municipal buildings, or built on water towers, or used for it became this, I could see them anywhere in any application and having some kind of benefit, while also being this beautiful installation of just an artistic interpretation. And then that even evolved, and that became, oh wow, well imagine building this in a way that people could actually call this home. Imagine being able to live in a space that's constantly generating this field and this connection to the ether, and being able to call that home and being able to exist in that, right? Like people are doing all these things to create structured water and, trying to do their best to kind of clear out all the toxins in the air and this, that, and the other. It's like, live in a pyramid. Like that'll do all those things for you, and you literally just exist in it. And so it slowly evolved into this concept where I really look towards the future of this being something where we normalize the idea of using things that work off the sacred geometry, that work off the Fibonacci spiral, that work off all these principles that have been proven for thousands of years as being effective. It's funny because we think of superstition as something that is woo-woo and separate from us, and only a certain group of maybe fringe dwellers really experience or play in that realm. But in a lot of concepts around the world, these things are accepted as being normal when they're normalized in any industry. If you look at wineries, right, they grow their grapes north to south if they can. Why? Because they believe that it makes the grapes grow better and better yield. But in reality, it's like you're lining up with the polarity of the planet. You are setting things up in such a way where you're creating less resistance. Pyramids do exactly the same thing using similar concepts. And yet one is considered normal practice in an industry. No one would think twice about it. So normalizing that and making it something where it's no longer this woo concept of why these things work, but a very imprinted reality of not only do these things work, but they're creating a cohesive environment for all of us to then be our true authentic self. You're creating a space and a container for people to be who they truly are. And every time someone is who they truly are, the world becomes a better place. Because instead of having filters and having different ways to perceive the world, we are now perceiving the world in a very genuine and authentic way, and we are sharing the best parts of ourselves in that. So for me, when I first set out for this, I knew I had to create a goal that was something that was conceivable but unattainable. And in doing so, it meant that I could remove ego from my goals and my aspirations, because the ego couldn't attach itself to a number, amount of sales, amount of revenue, amount of impact. I had to make sure it was something that was so genuine and authentic for myself that even if I never attained it, just the pursuit of it was worth it. And so it came to me when I was obviously sitting in a pyramid, but I had this vision of seeing this little girl, and she's walking past this park. And as she goes through the park, she sees a pyramid. So she walks up to it, and she's very observant. She's like looking at every little detail, just trying to figure out what she's looking at. And as she goes inside of it, she sits in it, and she looks around, and she's just kind of feeling into the space around her. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie V for Vendetta, but there's that scene, right, where she passes the note through the wall, and she pulls it out of the wall, and she starts to read it. And it says, "Even though I may never know you, and I never meet you, and I'll never speak to you, I want you to know that I love you, and no one can take that from you and take it from me." And as this little girl sits in the pyramid, she's overwhelmed with that feeling of just this space that she can feel love and feel peace and feel appreciated and nurture herself just in sitting in that space. And if I never meet that person, but they get that experience, they got what I was setting out for. And I may never see it, but in the pursuit of it, I can always keep myself in alignment with that mission of, there will be people who never experienced a pyramid before in their life, who may stumble upon one that I built, and they will be able to feel into the intention and purpose of which I built it without me ever needing to be present. So it can outlive me. It can be something that I can set up a pyramid and never go back. And in that process, I will still get the results and the feeling that I set out for.
It's incredible. It's an incredible vision. And what I love about it is that I think too often we talk ourselves out of good things because we need a rational metric to prove that it works before we build it. And what I love about this is you're saying, hey, I'm going to put these out in the world because I know they work, and and will allow the world to understand them by experiencing them. It's like, this is the way we come to the world as little kids. We like to play with each other. We like to show off our gifts. We like to share our toys. And this is you sharing in the playground. You're like, this is my toy, everybody. Yeah. Check it out. And through that experience, people get it, and because it does work. So I would love for you to share, what is the first time you saw somebody have an experience, somebody you didn't know, have an experience with your pyramid, and what did you witness? I know you won't be able to tell us what went on inside of them, but what did you witness?
So I have a beautiful story that was one of the first real affirming moments for me. And it was at a ceremonial journey space that we were at. I was facilitating. I had brought my pyramids, and what I usually do when I go to these types of spaces is the day before anything's to take place, I set a pyramid up on each floor, and then I go through my process of introducing myself to the space, letting it know my intention, letting it know why I'm there, why these people will be gathering there, asking permission for us to use the space and to cohabitate it and co-create. And then usually once I get an affirmation of, yes, you can be here, then I go ahead and start setting up a container. And so for me, my whole idea and concept is a safe container is a place for somebody to go deeply into who they are without feeling judged, intimidated, or any reservations on really willing to go deep. A container for me is a very clean space that people feel safe enough to really be themselves. And so usually what I do when I build this container is I'll connect the pyramids together, I'll build a field, and then I'll usually go through this process where I connect the entire field around a space. And I use a certain procedure that I've learned over time. My wife and I have worked on it for a long time on learning how to do these things. And I'll build a container, and there's a method that I use where I use green light, and I use a very specific pattern, and it kind of encompasses the entire space. I then fill in that container with what I consider like a liquid molten metal. And so as that molten metal kind of encapsulates that space, it basically creates a bulletproof container where nothing comes in, nothing goes out, but anything can be transmuted and anything can be brought back to source. So it creates a space for us to do those things. Well, the next day, the events are proceeding, everything's going, and then I have somebody who's sitting underneath the pyramid, and I just go to them and say, "Hi, how are you doing? How's everything going?" And they're like, Can you sit here with me for a moment? I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they're like, "Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not crazy." I'm like, "Okay, well, I've heard that one before. Let's go. How deep you want to go?" And so they go, "I keep seeing this green light travel from pyramid to pyramid inside the room, and it's shooting back and forth, and it's making these triangles." I'm like, "Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, very cool." And they're like, and then the triangles, they start adding together and they create this little field. And as the field keeps stretching, it gets solid and it keeps turning into a very shiny metal. And then it kind of fades out of reality. And then all that's left are these green triangles that keep connecting to each other. And he doesn't see my face while he's talking. I'm just like, he's describing back my exact process to me. And I have not had a conversation with him about these things. I have not told him what the pyramids do or why I bring them. He just naturally made his way underneath one and just was having a great time and started explaining the entire process back to me. And I was like, "Yep, those are very accurate things to see. You're not crazy. This is very natural for you to have this experience." And he just thought it was a blast. And as I walk away, I'm like, I'm not crazy. Like, I'm doing these things and I don't need the validation, but man, is it nice when you get that feedback of like, "Hey, by the way, that thing you're doing is actually doing its thing."
So much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And how far have you been able to disperse these pyramids to date? So I know when we talked about potentially geotagging them
Mm-hmm.
and scavenger hunts and some really fun ideas. Where are you in the process now?
So with the first kind of sets that have gone out, the people that purchased them, for every person that got one of my original sets, I gifted one back. And so for every pyramid that's purchased, I gift one back to the environment. I've left them in key places as I've done my work. And in my process, I always do the same thing. I introduce myself to a space. I tell them my intention, my purpose there. I ask for permission. I wait for a response, and then it becomes a conversation. Like I said before, being someone who's always built things, and part of that, when you build things, you also partly destroy things, right? You got to cut things, you got to change it, you got to change the form. And so I've learned that just imparting our will on our environment, it is a very effective technique, but it is not the most effective technique. Learning how to recruit the environment or the space into helping you on what you try to do is going to always bear more fruit than just imparting your will. And so martial arts taught me that because in our martial arts, we do very amazing things. It's very fantastic. But one of the big key things is if you want to break a stack of steel files or metal with your hand, you don't do it with force. You do it with energy. You do it with will. And these things are channeled in such a way where instead of having to force my way through a big stack of steel, the steel just gets out of my way. It's a conversation saying, "Hey, I want to go from here to here, and I'd like you to not be there when I get there." And that type of movement, that type of interaction is always way more effective than just sheer, "I'm going to break you." And so in doing so, I've left these pyramids in a handful of spaces And what I usually do is I'll take pictures of after the ceremony, once we're done setting them up, once we're done gifting them back, and I'll send it to the person that pyramid correlates to, because whoever bought it, I like to send them back a little picture of like, hey, this is the binary to the pyramid you bought, and this is where it now exists in space. And in doing so, it has been a very eye-opening experience for me, a very grounding experience, having to actually take the time, do the work, go out to the space, leave the pyramid behind. I mean, this is really not just my passion, but my calling for being here. And so I don't take it lightly, but every time I do it, I'm always wowed at the response that I get from the space itself. A lot of the times we fail to realize that the emotions that we carry, the trauma that is either experienced or carried on by an individual, whether it's in a space or it's just on their shoulders as they live life, the earth is always being receptive to us. It is always listening. It is always aware. It is always conscious of our beings as we walk upon this planet. And that energy, that heaviness, that weight, that gets settled into our environment. It settles into the dirt. It settles into the corners of our spaces. And without us doing the work of clearing this energy out, of willing to honor the experience that has happened, that allows us to have a deep connection with the earth, with the land. And we fail to realize that, the planet gives. It still loves to receive. It still loves to be honored and experienced in such a way that we give back to it. And that goes above and beyond like planting trees or just cleaning the dirt or just like picking up trash. It goes to like, imagine an environment that has housed numerous people that have all felt this heaviness, right? The planet wants nothing more to take it from them if they're willing to do the work, if they're willing to go there. And in doing so, the earth also still needs to be replenished. It needs to be fed and watered, but also given energy. And this energy that it produces, it's constant. It's always there. It's always here for us. Yet, unless we have a conversation with it, it's sitting there idle. It doesn't get to have a response or an ability to communicate how it's feeling. And that might be pretty deep for some people to kind of wrap their head around. How you said with plants, like really wanting like, hey, I want to experience this. I want to be here. I've had my own experiences of that, and that's really opened my eyes to how interconnected what we would consider plants, trees, rocks, inanimate objects. They have their own unique experience, and we can't judge it because it's different than ours, but we can definitely appreciate it for being different than ours very easily. And so in gifting these pyramids back as I go around, as I say, return them to the earth, in doing so, I have realized that we are doing our work as individuals by going deep into the shadow work, by going deep into our traumas, by healing them, by forgiving the people that may have transgressed against us. But we have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of human existence where these emotions, where these actions have taken place on this dirt, where it has not been honored, where the time and attention has not been given to these spaces. And so in going around and gifting these things back, I get a very unique perspective on what's happened on these spaces, what that energy does, how it sits idly and people can feel it. Like when people go through a space and they go, ooh, there's something here. Yes, there is something there. And it's not always a ghost. It's not always a spirit. It can just be a trauma is still here and is still present in this space. These pyramids gift me this unique experience of going to these spaces and feeling into them, honoring them, but also reflecting back to me the work I have to do as an individual. And so it is a beautiful dance of not only getting to bring peace and harmony and beauty to these spaces, but recognizing that in myself and recognizing where I still have work to do.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here imagining if every architect, because I've always thought of sacred architecture much the same that way that you're speaking. If every person who ever built anything, any car, anything that is on the face of this planet, if they came from this perspective, what would we build? It's an interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am so grateful for this conversation. And I'm curious, any last words for people?
So in my experience, I get to see a lot of people in their healing stages, because I do a lot of energy work. I do a lot of sound and vibrational healing, which actually goes toe in toe with the pyramids. I'm still really working on ways to experiment with sound and the pyramids and how they all function together. But in working with people, I find that everyone, regardless of who they are, what they've experienced, everyone has this beauty inside of them. And it's that same when you see like a baby falling asleep, right? There's no such thing as an ugly baby when they're falling asleep. They are just the most adorable, peaceful, just absolutely serene. You see it on their face. They're just completely at peace. And even though as adults we try to find all these things to busy us and to fill our time and to keep us going, when we do get to a space where we can completely relax, when we can completely be ourselves, there's a natural beauty that shows up. It's serene. It's absolutely unreal that everyone possesses this. And in remembering who we are and why we're here, in realizing our passions and our purpose, in the beginning, it can feel heavy. It can feel like there's this big thing that I have to do, that I'm put on this planet for, and I don't even know where to start, let alone how I'm going to get it done. And so my vision for what I'd like to do is so grandiose that it scares the crap out of me. It really does. That, like, how am I going to pull this off? And every step of the way, I am being gifted these opportunities for me to grow into the person that can do it, that can get it done. And so if you're in your work, if you found your passion, if you know why you're here, it may seem difficult at times to really communicate or articulate that clearly to people on the vastness of what you want to accomplish and what you want to do. For me, it has become something that excites me to no end, that I just can't wait to do it. But I know I have my whole life to accomplish it. So I'm in no hurry, but I'm definitely acting with urgency, because for every person that I said connects more deeply with themselves, we all grow. We all become more uniquely ourselves. For every pyramid that I leave behind, that is somebody who gets to experience it. And a lot of people would tell me, like, okay, well, what happens if someone steals it? Then it just keeps moving. It's not up to me. It's not mine no more, right? Like, I've gifted it to the earth. The earth will direct it exactly where it needs to be. There's no such thing as accidents. Everything is perfection. It may seem like other than that sometimes, because we go, well, if it's perfection, why does it look so chaotic? And it's like, that's because you're looking at it from here. If you had a 50,000-foot view, it'd look like a perfect masterpiece orchestrated seamlessly. But in pursuing these passions and willing to go deep, I have learned and got to experience that every person has this within them. They have this calling, this knowing, this awareness. And when they give it the time and attention that it deserves, that seed will flower, it'll sprout, and it'll become something. And you can't judge it for what it's going to look like when it's still a seed in the ground. But as you do the work and as you tend to your space and you really start going deep into what are the thoughts that I'm thinking? What are the habits and behaviors that I have that either have been put upon me or that I've accepted without acknowledging them, and being willing to go deep in that, you will find the answer to just about anything you've ever asked. Because it is in the field, it is in the ether. You'll be able to contest to this as well as I have. You've had a problem that is just so big that you don't know how you're going to solve, and it's in a moment of complete surrender where you're not even thinking about it that the answer comes. right? That's not by accident. Those things just happen. It's that you have finally put yourself in a place where you're not resistant to the thought, to the idea. If you have a problem and you're so fixated on it, the solution can't come from that. It comes from being in a space that's receptive, that's open, that's willing. And so for my vision in what the pyramids are to become, my partner and I, we kind of joke around it and we call it Lemuria 2.0, but it really is this idea and this concept of, I want to build a space that has these beautiful, massive pyramids that people can come visit, that we can put events on, that we can have people come and teach and put on demonstrations, to become a repository of knowledge, of experiences, of all these arts and these concepts that have kind of been spread throughout the planet as people have become waking up to what their gifts are, and having a place to people to bring these gifts and to share them. And so people can experience the possibility of what if this was possible? What does that mean for my life, for the people that I love, for this planet? And in so doing, they start off as little cool meditation pyramids that are amazing, that I can totally do all day, every day. But the goal is something that scares me to no end, and that I feel called to build this space for people who have felt weird and different and always felt like a fringe dweller or an outsider that was always reserved in sharing what they thought they knew or who they were, because this society doesn't really offer that container to do that. And so I'm looking to build a space where people can find that, can be attracted to it. And in so doing, they get to share the best parts of them, and they get to affect countless lives that then go out and affect countless more lives. And so even though my dream and my idea of building this space comes from this, I would love to see it, because if I knew it existed, I would seek it out. I would find it one way or another. I would pursue it to no end so that I could have a place to share my gifts and my ideas and my concepts. And so if it's not going to exist, then I'm going to build it. And I'm going to build it for all the people like me. And I'm going to build it for all the people who aren't like me, so that way they can also get to experience it. And so I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm very much completely consumed by this idea, and I know it's a possibility and it can be a reality. But I'm also in a phase where I'm also learning how to ask for help and what that means, and how that, even though I want to do these things for other people, what are my needs? How do I know my needs are met in this experience while I'm pursuing this? So it becomes this self-reflective device where, yes, I want to build it for others, and I would love to see it done just so I can experience it myself. But it's more than that. It's more than me saying, "Oh, I'm going to do it for my children," because I don't have children, right? That's a thing over here that doesn't exist. So to do it for everyone else, to do it for this planet, to do it for myself, it becomes something that I believe so strongly that if there was no monetary benefit, I would still be doing it. If there was no recognition, I'd still be doing it. And so everyone has that thing for them that they want to pursue more than anything else. And what I'd leave you off with is, find out what that thing is in those deep moments of self-reflection. And when you are allowed yourself to tap into that emotion of what actually that means, what happens if you actually succeed, if you're overcome with emotion, you will be able to snap that puzzle piece, your puzzle piece of who you are and why you're here, into the greater puzzle of everything else that's going on. And you will very clearly see what it is you're here to do, how you're meant to do it, and who you will become in the process of it. Because that part of the journey, that self-fulfilling prophecy of, I need to become someone much greater in order to achieve this much greater thing, it will happen. You will find yourself. And is it always comfortable? No. Is it always easy? No. Right? I say with my journey, right, in my spiritual awakening and going through these things, hardest, most difficult, most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. Wouldn't recommend it, but I'd do it again. And that's how I feel about a lot of the stuff that we go through. right? We look at it as this event that happens, and then we kind of leave it alone. Whereas if we delve deep into what it actually meant to go through it and who we become on the other side of it, then not only do we not have to face that over and over again, but then we get to honor that experience. We're no longer victims of it. We create this reality for ourselves, and we get to take full responsibility when it goes right and when it seems to go wrong. So in building these pyramids, I get a beautiful reflection of how much structure my life gets to have and how much freedom I get to experience because I had structure, which to me was always such a scary thing, right? Having a regimented routine scared the crap out of me. But then being willing to go there and sit in the pyramid every day and do my routine and do my experience and get to have these experiences in such a way that it's provided me a beautiful foundation to then create new things and new ideas and new experiences and attract new partners. I've had countless conversations sitting outside the pyramid, talking to someone inside of it and learning so much about myself from their experience that it is now more fun for me to sit outside of it than sit inside of it. I never saw that coming. So in willing to go there, I get these beautiful gifts of seeing other people have their experience and learning about myself in the process. So never be afraid to share and to teach and to honor other people's experiences, because it will teach you so much more about your own, because it's easy to be objective to somebody else's experiences. So use that opportunity to honor what you're experiencing in your own life, what it means for you as an individual, and then where that fits in the grand scheme of things. Because I like to say I collect puzzle pieces. I collect knowledge all the time. But when two pieces snap together and you realize they go together, and that not only do they go together, but they don't interrupt any other piece, it's this beautiful moment of, oh, I get to do that. I get to snap into other people's life. I get to be a part of other people's experiences. And I get to do so seamlessly and perfectly. And I get to do it in such a way that I honor my own experience while still getting to be a part of somebody else's. And that part of the journey for me has been something that, you know, even though I like to busy my life with a lot of things that I like to do, because there's no shortage of fun things to do, right? That I never forget that the reason that I'm here, the purpose that I'm here to bring, is to learn to honor space, to bring in this divine energy and help heal the planet one space at a time, so that other people get to experience that as well. And so the work begets other work, begets other work. And I get to be a starting point for a lot of people. And there's a beautiful, beautiful reflection in that you always stay in beginner's mind, right? You always want to stay in a space where everything's new and exciting. But I get to have that experience every time a new person gets introduced to these beautiful pyramids. And it's not lost on me that I get to be that person for them. And in doing so, they get to be a beautiful reflection for me. So I just want to say, Stacy, you have been such a beautiful reflection in that a lot of the things that you share with me, I'm just like, I can't wait to share stories like you do about this life that sounds so made up, that sounds absolutely astounding. And you don't do it with any ounce of being braggadocious or trying to share so you can tell people how awesome your life is. You're just like, oh yeah, that's just what I did today. And it's just beautiful to hear you say it. And I'm like, yes, that's what my life sounds like. It's just another day.
Incredible. And I think that's inspiring for so many people. And I think what you just said is going to attract a lot of people who want to help or support in some way. So where can people find you?
They can find me walking about, traveling amongst the planet. If you're meant to find me, you will, right? Just put it out there. I will show up. Have pyramids, will travel.
I love that answer.
But if you
because that's really what Dreaming Earth is all about, is understanding that we're creating this together,
mm-hmm.
and it's all a daydream, and we are all just a thought away, and experiences are a thought away, and focus and intention is what does the trick.
Yeah.
I have loved this conversation so much, Zaid. I'm so grateful that you're here. As usual, so generous. And I love peeking behind the curtain into your process. And I think so many people are going to see the world in a new way. So thank you so much for everything that you shared here today. It's super powerful.
Awesome. And there are links where you can find things and find me. I'm pretty sure you'll share them. They'll be attached somewhere. But in my experience, I've really loved and savored the idea that if we're manifesting this reality and we are all hallucinating together, then the limitations that we set upon ourselves are the only real ones. There's nothing that you can't do. There's no place you can't go. And as long as you're open and willing and receptive, that there is a space for you to fit into the grand scheme of things in any way you want to. So I say it in jest, but it is earnestly how I feel, that like when you're meant to find someone, if you're actually seeking them out, right? If you want to integrate with beautiful people and have these wonderful conversations, then you have to be one of those people. You have to be willing to put yourself out there in that way. It's those conversations that seem difficult at first. Like even me and you just talking, right? When we met, we just sat down next to each other and you're like, so how was your day? Right? And it was just this beautiful entangling. And once you realize that I was the pyramid guy, you're like, oh, that's why I'm sitting right next to you. And then we go into this beautiful conversation of all these experiences that we have and the reflections and all that beauty that is. And I honor and appreciate what you've done to get to this point, because a lot of things that you've shared have really inspired me to realize that I'm not as far off from my goals as I think I am. I only put those limitations on me because I made something so grand in my head that I thought it needed to take a long time. It needed to take a lot of effort. It needed to take, me imparting will, on my reality to make things happen, when it doesn't. It's conversations like these. It's meeting beautiful people and opening doors and being courageous enough to step through them.
Oh, incredible. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.